They love certain kinds of music that you just don't. All right. If you are not more concerned about the central doctrines of the faith, if you don't know the Trinity, if you can't recognize when liberals functionally deny the deity of Christ, if you can't give a meaningful defense of the resurrection and the centrality of the resurrection of the faith, if you don't know what the high priest did in the Old Testament, because it becomes central to what the high priest does in the New Covenant, if you don't have all that stuff front and center, why in the world are you thinking about these other things? Why? I don't understand. I don't get it. And it seems that those are the same people then that draw very narrow theological lines. Well, some will say, and I get it. Some will try to say, well, I think these folks, people over that practice this kind of view or that kind of view, if you can't make the connection between what you object to and the gospel and make it real, then you don't have any business criticizing them. A lot of folks recognize the need to be able to do that, and so what they'll do is they'll take Lord's Supper issues, and they'll literally draw a line to gospel issues and say, if you do it differently than I am, you're denying the gospel. Even though the other person does not consciously, purposefully, confessionally make the necessary statements to create that bridge. They'll say, well, if that person believes this, then they must believe this, and that means they deny the gospel. I've seen that. That's what people do to Michael Brown. That's what people do there. Is they'll say, well, if he can't see that this person is wrong about that, then that must mean consistently that he must believe this and this and this. Now, Michael will say, I don't believe this, and this, but they don't care. If you're consistent, then you're gone. You're straight off into hell. And I just want to say, folks, why don't you leave that to God? Michael Brown will tell you that as his friend and his brother, I have looked him in the eye and said, what on earth are you thinking? And he listens to me because I listen to him. And I don't just simply close the door, slam the door, and send you on your way. Why do we have to think about these things? Because once we keep getting pushed into tighter and tighter and smaller areas, we are going to be forced to make decisions in these areas. And once the persecution, the pressure is there, that's not the time to be thinking about it. Now's the time to be thinking about it. Now's the time to be going, here are my priorities, here's where I'm going to draw the line, and here's why. Here's why. You got to think these things through. You've got to go, I start with who God is. I start with what God has said about himself, the Trinity, the deity of Christ, the person of the Holy Spirit. I start there. And then I'm going to go down from there to what he has done to glorify himself. That's the gospel. And the result of the gospel is the church. And as you prioritize all these things, you're going to come across places where my Presbyterian brothers and I, we disagree on the structure of the church. Now, only in one primary area. We believe Christ is the head of the church, and we believe the purpose of the church is the worship of God. And honestly, if you didn't know the distinctives, you would have to look carefully for the little font versus the big font to tell the difference. between an Orthodox Presbyterian church service and a Reformed Baptist church service. If you didn't notice that one difference, you wouldn't catch it. We're singing the same songs, we're preaching the same sermons, we're preaching the same theology. You wouldn't notice the difference. You'd see far more of a difference between a Reformed Baptist church and a lot of Southern Baptist churches today than you would going the other direction. Okay. So what are we going to do? If I think my Presbyterian friends are wrong about the session and the presbytery and the overarching structure, what are we going to do? And here's where some people decide that that's a gospel issue. And I can figure out how you could try to create a chain of links to take you to the gospel. And I've had Baptists, and I've certainly had Presbyterians, who will do it on baptism. This is a gospel issue. Can't fellowship with Presbyterians. Well, fellowship in what way? We have the same gospel. We believe they're being inconsistent. They believe we're being inconsistent. And here's where hyperism comes in. It can be hyper-fundamentalism, hyper-Calvinism, I don't care what the hyper is. Anybody who's a hyper thinks that in this life we are going to have perfection of theology and perfection of agreement between us. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And so I can fellowship in a Presbyterian church. I have preached from the pulpit of many a Presbyterian church, and the folks have been blessed. The Spirit of God moved. But I can't be a member there. I can't be a member there long term. And I shouldn't be if I have someplace else to go. Now, I've got brethren who are Reformed Baptists who are in Presbyterian churches because there's no place else for them to go. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying we have a difference of understanding in regards to baptism and church government. And as long as we have the freedom, it's okay for us to have a Reformed Baptist church and you to have a Presbyterian church. Now, the day may come when there are so few of us that we may still be open about our difference. But the point is this, folks. They are my brothers in Christ. And I don't understand there's two imbalances. I don't understand the mindset that